we've got Unigrid, and they're going to be pitching their project.
So my name's Evan. I'm a co-founder of Unigrid over here. And what we would like to talk about today is blockchain scaling and the next generation internet and cloud. Oh yeah, I might need that. Thank you. This one's forward, yeah? Yep. So the current internet has a problem. The way things work, it's very prone to DDoS attacks because what you have is a single point of failure, right? You have most servers and data being served from one entry point. So it makes it very easy for DDoS attacks to happen on one point. And it not only affects that specific service, but it's also the traffic route, right? Because the way data travels across the internet, it can go from city to city to city. So these attackers will hijack, computers, nodes across the world, and they can all funnel through your location, wherever you are. So it's not just the end service that they're attacking is affected, it can be the whole internet. We also are seeing a lot of problems, especially right now with world events, that information is being blocked. And we think it's an inalienable right that everybody should have access to information. It's it's very difficult to come to an opinion about anything if you don't have all of the information. Services are also very easily interrupted. So that could be, a downing of a server where, say, you're on a website and either there's a hardware failure or something goes wrong. I think everybody has experienced that, whether it be downing of servers on Amazon can affect Netflix, that can affect other services like, I would say Facebook, but they have their own, which are independent, and they have their own problems, right? So how can we help? So if we look at the current problem where most web pages are being served from a single server, if we can mitigate that by serving data or services from many, many locations around the globe, which makes it near impossible to attack, because you would have to attack many, many, many points around the globe, and providing unblockable services. So especially now we're seeing services that some governments, or mostly it's governments, don't agree with, and they just block it, right? They shut down the service and say this is an enemy of the state, or something they don't agree with. On our network, that's just not possible. So service is always online. We have, as I mentioned before, that services can go offline. You don't get access to them. So we have 100% uptime. Everything can stay up. There's no downtime ever. So you wouldn't have that problem of Netflix going down, or if it's Twitter service, most of those are running off of centralized servers. Those centralized servers run into problems. We can also offer permanent data storage. So what that means is you can upload your data, you upload it once, and then it's always accessible. As long as you pay forward, it's accessible, and it's accessible from anywhere. So that data goes up into our network, it gets sharded and split across the nodes. That also means that data is accessible from any point that you're at. So say if we upload something from here in Dubai, it's going to go up through a network or swarm of nodes in the Dubai region. But then if I'm in London, for example, and I want to access that data, it's going to come down to you from a swarm of nodes in that region. So that also fixes some latency problems as well. A few statistics. So over 50% of cloud services are owned by just 3 corporations. For traffic through the internet, it's even higher. So everything is extremely centralized in cloud service industry. So they can charge their own price. They can use their own hardware. Usually, it's it's not reliable. We know that. And the cloud computing market is projected to reach $482 billion just this year. So it's a very large market that only 3 companies pretty much get all of that money. Whoops. Do I go forward or backwards? Yep. Too far. A third of businesses experience these regular DDoS attacks. So that is, usually it's either governments or specific companies that are constantly attacked. And it's on a regular basis. It's not something, they're constantly dealing with it. So there's extra expenses that they have to deal with. So helping the people. So we would like to help, fight that censorship and lockdowns on the internet, give people freedom to that access to that information. This will stop oppressive regimes, give people access to everything. So, as I said before, it's very hard to come to a conclusion or have your own opinion if you only see one channel of information, right? We're seeing a lot of that right now. And allowing the participants full control of their data. So that could be something like your health records, right? You want control of that data. That should be your data. It shouldn't be owned by the health industry, right? It should be yours. So we'd like to make this network democratic, right? Anybody can join it. So if you run a server, you could run on your home computer, you could run on a server in a data center. It's not closed. So we let anybody in. There's some similar projects that everything's closed. They don't let anybody join. So we'd like to make this democratic and decentralized. And voting rights. We think it's very important that if you're participating in something, you should have a say in how the network itself acts. So you should be able to vote. So each individual that is running a node will get a chance to vote on the network. So what that means is, say, for example, we're making an update to the network, and we as developers want to push it onto the network. Well, the network itself gets a vote on that. They get to decide and say, oh, well, whatever you're pushing on the network, we don't agree with. So we move on. So making it autonomous. So the network itself should be able to think and react and respond, right? And scalable. If, for example, you're running, you have some data on the server, and 1 or 2 of those go down that has your data, well, the network will readjust. So that data that was on the 2 that went down will be moved to another server in that swarm. We will be including compute work. So with compute, we have storage capability and also anonymous internet access. And we're going to make it transactionless, so our blocks do not have transactions, which inherently will increase our throughput and TPS. So what is a grid node? We like to call them grid nodes because, for one, it's a node, which is really just a computer connected to the internet, right? And a grid is being interconnected and global. So we utilizes the resources on each server or computer. And what then you're allowed to do is share those resources with everybody else on the network. As long as, say, for example, a university needs a lot of processing power. they can rent that on the network, say 5%, 10%, and it's easily accessible. And as the network grows and it scales, it gets faster and faster and faster, and there's more and more power on the network. So things like AI would extremely, benefit from this. And we place traditional servers. So in a data center today, if you run a data center, you're setting up that server, you're doing all the hardware, the placement, and then you have to go out and you have to sell it. You have to sell that space. With this network, if you set up a grid node and you invest in that part of the data center to be connected to our network, you don't have to go and do that selling anymore. The work would come to you depending on the resources you're providing. And then they get paid back in a reward for the services they provide. So we score that, depending on if it's compute, the hard drive space, or the throughput. And how we do that is we just send little packets of information, we test and say, hey, is this performing accurately? And then we also send a test back and say, hey, was that last one correct, to make sure nobody's cheating. So the next would be better performance, and resources equal higher rewards. So if you had a node running on a slower machine, you're going to get a lower score. The machine's a little faster, has more RAM, has more hard drive space, you will get categorized as in a higher tier. I'm going to show you a quick video of why Unigrade is a market disruptor.
The Unigrid Network and the underlying protocol have the power to render various data communication and storage market segments obsolete or completely redundant. In the same way streaming services rendered physical media obsolete, the Unigrid Network makes anonymization networks, VPN providers, backup services, storage services, and cloud service providers completely obsolete. That's a bold claim, but we stand by it. Let's take a look segment by segment. Goodbye backup providers and secondary storage solutions. The Unigrid network is backed by a collection of blockchains that use striping and parity blocks to ensure data integrity and achieve fault tolerance and redundant storage. Grid nodes on the network organize themselves into shard groups, with each individual shard group governing exactly one blockchain. The Unigrid network uses the shard groups to create storage arrays similar to legacy RAID arrays, but using blockchains instead of SSDs or disks. Each entry then either contains data or parity information. The result is a network where the data you store can never disappear by accident or sabotage. Why use The Unigrid network and the underlying protocol have the power to render various data communication and storage market segments obsolete or completely redundant. In the same way streaming services rendered physical media obsolete, the Unigrid network makes anonymization networks, VPN providers, backup services, storage services, and cloud service providers completely obsolete. That's a bold claim, but we stand by it. Let's take a look segment by segment. Goodbye backup providers and secondary storage solutions. The Unigrid network is backed by a collection of blockchains that use striping and parity blocks to ensure data integrity and achieve fault tolerance and redundant storage. Grid nodes on the network organize themselves into shard groups, with each individual shard group governing exactly one blockchain. The Unigrid network uses the shard groups to create storage arrays similar to legacy RAID arrays, but using blockchains instead of SSDs or disks. Each entry then either contains data or parity information. The result is a network where the data you store can never disappear by accident or sabotage. Why use risky traditional storage when you can back up your data once, securely, forever? Goodbye VPN providers and anonymity networks. The Unigrid network provides anonymous network access not only to the Unigrid network itself, but also the ordinary internet. The Unigrid network is more resistant to eavesdropping than systems like Tor, as it uses in-memory communication blockchains and shard groups to achieve anonymization. While Tor uses traditional onion routing, the Unigrid network uses fingerprinting and its underlying communication blockchains to achieve anonymity. Unless you can scan the whole network at the same time, it's impossible to know who initiated data traffic. Nodes and grid nodes forwarding traffic are completely indistinguishable from the node that actually originated the traffic. Not only is the network inherently anonymous, it's not run by a company that could well sell you out like a VPN. Anonymous, secure, and trustworthy. Why go anywhere else? And goodbye cloud service providers. Finally, the Unigrid network and the Unigrid Foundation also intends to address the currently very costly cloud services on the market. Unigrid Network participants provide compute cycles and storage not only from data centers, but also from home servers and home connections. This gives the network the potential to provide similar services at a fraction of the cost. The Unigrid network rewards the nodes on the network when they provide these services, and the cost of these services relies on the exhaustion level of the network. If there are a lot of free resources, the cost for the end user goes down. If the network is highly loaded with less resources available, the cost for the end user goes up. This is how the network regulates itself and controls how much the grid nodes get rewarded when they provide their services. The fact that anybody can join the network and provide their computing resources to it creates a truly open market that regulates itself and keeps costs for the end user down to a minimum. Cloud providers will be forced to either close down or join the Unigrid network and provide their services under the same conditions as the rest of the Unigrid network. The Unigrid network has the potential to change the IT industry and the way we work. It gives end users the ability to store, view, and use their data directly from their own computers without the need of having to rely on or trust external service providers. They can put their trust into the design of the network rather than relying on the assurances of an external company. We welcome you to the next natural step in the evolution of the internet. Visit the Unigrid website to learn more about the network, its development, and what's currently happening at the Unigrid Foundation.
I seem to have a problem with this clicker. So Web3 and Internet 2.0. Web3, we're seeing a lot of excitement and interest around Web3, how it's helping decentralize the finance and bank the unbanked. So what is Internet 2.0? We like to call what we're doing Internet 2.0. And what do we mean by that? Well, we can offer the data redundancy that a traditional internet doesn't provide. We built everything around privacy standards. It's 100% up, always online. So we think in the future, we would like to see a lot more of the decentralized Web3 projects live on a decentralized network. So some of our goals, we'd like to mitigate the DDoS attacks, give freedom of information to everyone, keep services running nonstop, build a democratic internet, and data privacy. So thank you for all listening. Sorry, the clicker and me don't get along. But let's build a better internet, and we are right over here at booth G3. Thank you.